In this video, we are going to work another in-class problem. It says write a program to check whether a string is a palindrome. That is a string that reads the same forward as backwards. All right, so we're just going to do kind of an easy case. We'll just do the case where we'll just use all lowercase letters and no spaces. Otherwise, or other types of characters. Otherwise, it's going to get a little difficult to do that. So just to make the video not too long. All right, so I'm just going to write a method, public static Boolean is palindrome. Okay, and let's make some test cases. System.out.println is palindrome. Madam, I'm Adam. So those first two are palindromes. Whatever is not a palindrome. And neither is that. Okay, so when we get this correct, right, in our test cases, we should get true, 2 trues, and 2 falses. Okay, so what we are going to do, right, is basically write a for loop for int I equals 0, I less than word dot length, I plus plus. Okay, and then so that is the standard for loop that we've been talking about. Same basic thing, right? For arrays, array lists, and strings, right? If you haven't, if that seems foreign to you, you need to go back and watch those previous videos. So what we are going to do is to have this for loop that goes over the elements of the array, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start with the first, elements of the string, the characters in the string. So what we're going to do is compare the first character in the string to the last character in the string. Okay. So if inside here we're going to have if, all right, and then whatever the first character is, sorry, I shouldn't use first character there. Um, so what's a good way to say that? Let's just call it character 1. All right, so character 1 will be a character here that's at the beginning, and then I'm going to check it with its corresponding character over here. And then either one of two things, right? If those two characters are equal to each other, well, then what I'm going to do is check the next pair, right? See if the first one is equal to the second one over here. Okay. However, if they are not equal, right? Like, for instance, here, if I go to check whatever, I say, okay, that's a W, and the last one is an R, right? Well, then there's no need to check any further. I know that this is not a palindrome, okay? So, If character 1 is not equal to character 2, then I am going to return false, right? This thing is not a palindrome. Okay? And that will be the end of it. On the other hand, like I said, if this character is equal to this one, right, the first one is equal to the last one, then we're going to increase the index and check the second one with the next to last one, right, and so on and so forth. So what will happen is that this loop will go all the way through this string, right? And if any of those two characters, don't work, then we're immediately going to return false, right? And it will be over. However, if it goes all the way through the string, right, and goes through like that, then we can return true, right? It is a palindrome. So in other words, if we make it all the way to here, right, then we'll know that it's a palindrome, all right? So that's the basic logic of it. What I need to do is to pull off these characters in kind of the right way. So character 1 is not a legitimate name, right? What I need to do is to get the character at index I, right? And so the character at index I would be in.char at I. Okay? So that will give me the first character, or the character at index I, rather. Okay? So I'm using char at, right, instead of substring, because number one, I only have to pull out one character at a time here. I don't have to pull out multiple. I could use substring to do that. But the other thing is that if I use char at, right, that returns the character as type char, a primitive type, so I can use, right, these logical operators or relational operators that we talked about in chapter 7, right? If not, then I have to compare it. If I pull them out as strings, I have to do it a different way, okay? All right, so now the only thing I have left is, and this problem is to figure out how am I going to pull out the one that's on the other side of the string over here. So for instance, right, here I'm going to pull out whatever the first one is and then whatever this one is, okay? All right. So in order to do that, right, let's just take this example here because it's short, blah, right, is 4 characters, right? And the first character is at index 0, then index 1, then index 2, and then index 3 over here, okay? So the length of blah is 4. So I want to compare the thing at index 0 with the thing at index 3, okay? So we already know how to get the next to last character, right? So that would be word.length minus 1, right? That would be the very last index. All right, over here. Or in this case, we're talking about the H right there. So that would be the very last index. So that's exactly what I would want to do. When I is 0, this will give me char at 0, which is the first character. This will give me, right, char at word length minus 1. In the case of blah, that will be 4 minus 1, which is 3. Okay. All right. Then when I go through the first loop, or the first iteration, right, I will be increased to 1, and so this will be in.char at 1. Okay. So that's exactly what I want. That would be this L right here. But words.length minus 1 is not going to work because that would still be 3, right? So what we'll need to do is to subtract off the value of I there. I'm just checking. When I is 0, right, I will get char at 0. That's the first character. I'll get word.length minus 1 minus 0. So that would be word.length minus 1. In the case of blah, that would be 4 minus 1, which is 3. So that will work perfectly. Then when I is 1, this will be the first character, the L, right? Because that's at index 1. And then it will be word.length, which is 4, right? Minus 1 minus 1, which would be 2. So that would compare the L and the A. All right? And so as the value of I is increasing from 0 to whatever the last index is, this one is going in reverse, right? And doing it that way. So now when I run this, there's some kind of problem there. forgot a bunch of parentheses here. Oh, and it's not in, right? It's word. All right, so we should get 2 trues and 2 falses. All right, and there you can see it. All right, so that works. Okay, and so that looks pretty good. The one thing is that it actually is not as efficient as it could be, right? But one thing is that the it compares too much, right? This string, right, is going to go all the way from 0 all the way to whatever the length of the word is. Okay, that's not something that we need to really do. Okay, we only need to make it to the middle, right? If we made it to the middle, then we've done every possible comparison. Okay. All right, and so what we can do is just change this to word.length over 2. You can see we still get 2 trues and 2 falses, right, correctly there. So in other words, once, like for instance, with race car, right, we'll compare the 2 R's, they'll be the same. We'll compare the 2 A's, they'll be the same. We'll compare the 2 C's, and they'll be the same. And then there's really we don't have to compare the E. This is an odd length palindrome, right? And so it doesn't really get compared at all. When you have an even length palindrome, right, then this works, perfectly fine as well. So that's a little bit more efficient than what we had earlier.